All right, we're at part three of the Conscious Consumer Web video series. Part one was dealing with the difficulty of starting a business. Part two was looking at um, the reality of your situation. And part three is, I think it's the transitional video where we're going to start looking at the idea of if you can overcome or can you overcome. Quick theme music and right back at it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
All right. So the question is, can you overcome? Can you overcome the difficulty or the reality of your situation and actually get started on a business? Um, I guess the first thing we have to do is kind of define what is overcoming. And as I look at what overcoming is, what I think tends to happen is that all of us, I think a lot of us, I'm generalizing here, that we all kind of look at the end result, to see or decide if we overcame something. And by looking at the end result, we overlook all of the small steps that we may have accomplished through the whole process. But just like a lot of people, when they talk about starting a business or being an entrepreneur, they talk about the small steps and celebrating the small accomplishments. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. In the first two videos of the series, I talked about the process of working on a business plan in sections. And that's my way of saying, yes, celebrate those small accomplishments. If everyone begins to look at the sections and the small parts, then the answer to can you overcome becomes yes. Once a person realizes that a lack of capital and that the lack of help is not really a problem, and that fear is the primary opposer, like my man Ali said, fear is the primary opposer. The reality of starting a business becomes clear, and all that has to be done is formulating a step by step program, breaking down and analyzing every part, right? But here's the transitional section. There's an uncomfortable reality. Like I said in the first couple of episodes, I failed to really, you know what? I didn't touch on the title, The Conscious Consumer. I really didn't get into that. I'm going to start getting into that now. And to get into that, I have to talk about the uncomfortable reality in creating a business. And this uncomfortable reality has been written about in newspapers and magazines. There are books that address it. And what it deals with is something that I take very seriously. And I talk about it as often as I can when I get to talk to people. And that is that most people don't think about how they buy things. They don't think about what they're purchasing and how they're purchasing. There's this kind of hedonistic or this self satisfaction that comes with copping a new pair of kicks, or picking up the latest mainstream record release. There's this self satisfaction in being a part of what everybody else is doing, right? It's like when we use our money at a big chain restaurant. Um, we get the immediate satisfaction of a full stomach. So we don't think about whether that big chain restaurant is treating its employees fairly, or we don't even know who the owner of the restaurant is. Typically, it's a franchise. And I'm not saying that franchises are bad. I'm saying that we really don't pay attention to what's available in our own cities very often. We kind of overlook things and we go for the easy purchase. What we don't consider is the uncomfortable reality. And I'm going to keep repeating that phrase because that's what this section is about, the uncomfortable reality. And I'm going to get into it more and more, that exists for every person looking to start a business. Is there's a reason why a business fails or struggles. And I'm not going to discuss the typical lack of funds. I'm not going to discuss the idea of making a mistake. There's a reason why it's not customer service or location that makes a business stumble. It's the uncomfortable reality. And that uncomfortable reality has to do with the conscious consumer. By explaining my thoughts on the uncomfortable reality that's rarely discussed and why a business fails, then we'll be able to kind of get into a more serious kind of analysis. So what I'll do is, because I've used the term uncomfortable analysis over and over, I'm going to get into that in the next episode. So what I need you to do is think about what I'm talking about. Think about it and say, man, what does he mean by uncomfortable reality? Now, I've given a couple of hints, and those hints are the way we make purchases and the conscious consumer, which I'm getting to. But the next episode, I'm really going to dive into this idea of the uncomfortable reality of why many businesses fail. See you on the other side.